What if I told you that a single plate of untouched turkey could unlock a mystery that had destroyed a family for 27 years? On Christmas Eve, while champagne glasses clinked and children squealed with joy, one elderly man sat frozen in a corner booth, staring at food he couldn't bring himself to eat. His hands trembled, his eyes kept darting to the door, and nobody, not one single person in that crowded diner, noticed he was dying inside. Nobody, except her. A waitress who couldn't have been older than 28, who was exhausted, who had her own problems, who had every reason to just take his order and walk away. But she didn't. And what happened next? What she discovered in the back of that diner, what came through the door at 11:43 p.m. would prove that some miracles don't announce themselves with trumpets and angels. Sometimes they arrive in work boots, covered in snow, carrying 27 years of regret. Before we go any further, hit that subscribe button, because this is the kind of story that reminds you why we tell stories in the first place. This is the story of Harold won Emma and the Christmas that brought the dead back to life. He ordered the same meal every Christmas Eve for 27 years, but never took a single bite. December 24th, 7 p.m. The Silver Spoon Diner sat on the corner of Maple and Fifth like a lighthouse in a sea of snow. Red and gold lights wrapped around the windows. A plastic Santa waved from the roof. Inside, every booth was packed with families, grandparents cutting turkey, fathers bouncing babies on their knees, teenagers rolling their eyes at Christmas carols while secretly singing along. The air smelled like cinnamon, roasted ham, and pine needles from the little tree near the register. It was the kind of place where people came to feel less alone. But Harold came here to practice being alone. 82 years old, silver hair neatly combed, brown coat buttoned to the collar even though the diner was warm. Hands folded on the table like a schoolboy waiting for the teacher to notice him. He sat in booth 7, the one in the back corner, the one where the light was softest and the noise didn't quite reach. He'd been coming here every Christmas Eve since 1998. Same booth, same time, same order. Turkey dinner with all the fixings. Mashed potatoes with gravy. Honey-glazed ham, green beans, cranberry sauce. And a slice of the Silver Spoon's famous apple pie, still warm, with a scoop of vanilla ice cream slowly melting into the crust. But here's the thing. Here's the part that made your heart crack if you paid attention. He never ate it. Not one bite. Every year, Harold Benton ordered a feast and let it go cold. The other waitresses knew him by now. They'd stopped asking questions. They'd bring the food, refill his water, leave the check, and that was that. Some people are just eccentric, they figured. Some people have their rituals. But Emma was new. It was only her 3rd Christmas working at the Silver Spoon, and she hadn't learned to stop caring yet. She'd been watching him from across the diner for 20 minutes. The way his fingers drummed nervously on the menu, even though he always ordered the same thing. The way his eyes kept flicking toward the front door every time it opened. Hope flashing across his face for just a second before dimming again. The way he sat so perfectly still, like if he moved too much, he might shatter. Emma had seen lonely before. Her father had looked like that in the months before he passed. That hollow expression, that far-off stare, like the body was still there, but the soul had already started packing its bags. She approached booth 7 with a pot of coffee and her best smile. "Good evening, sir. Back again this year?" Harold looked up, startled, like he'd forgotten other people existed. "Yes," he said quietly. His voice was rough, underused. "Tradition." Emma set down a mug and poured, Special occasion? Harold's jaw tightened. You could say that. There was a long pause. Emma should have walked away. The kitchen was screaming her name. Table 3 needed ketchup. Table 9 wanted their check 5 minutes ago, but something rooted her in place. The usual? She asked gently. Harold nodded. Turkey dinner, full spread, and, he hesitated, apple pie with ice cream. You got it. Emma turned to leave, but then Harold spoke again, so softly she almost didn't hear him. On 2 plates, please. Emma stopped. She looked back at the booth. There was only one man sitting there. 2 plates, she repeated carefully. Harold didn't look at her. His eyes stayed fixed on the salt shaker. 2 plates, he confirmed, and Emma understood. Whoever was supposed to be sitting across from him, they weren't coming. They hadn't come in a very long time. When Emma returned 15 minutes later, both plates were still full, and Harold was crying. Emma brought the food herself, instead of letting the kitchen runner take it. She set down the first plate in front of Harold. Turkey glistening, potatoes piled high, steam rising like tiny ghosts. Then she placed the second plate across from him. At the empty seat, Harold stared at it. His hands, weathered and spotted with age, reached out and adjusted the fork, straightened the napkin, moved the plate half an inch to the left, like he was setting the table for someone he loved. Thank you, he whispered. Emma nodded and walked away, her throat suddenly tight. She got pulled into the chaos of the dinner rush, refilling drinks, taking orders, calming down a toddler who dropped his cookie, smiling at customers who didn't tip, the usual dance. But every few minutes, her eyes drifted back to booth 7. Harold hadn't moved. Neither plate had been touched. 15 minutes passed, then 20. When Emma finally made her way back, she found Harold with his head in his hands. His shoulders were shaking. He was crying, silently, the way men of his generation cry, like they're ashamed of their own grief. Emma's heart broke in half. She slid into the booth across from him, technically against diner policy, but she didn't care. Sir, she said softly, are you all right? Harold wiped his eyes quickly, embarrassed. I'm fine. Just old and foolish. You're not foolish. He looked up at her, then really looked at her. His eyes were the color of storm clouds, and they held an ocean of sadness. I come here every year, he said quietly, because this was the last place I saw my son. Emma's breath caught. Your son? Harold nodded. December 24th, 1998. We had dinner here, right at this table. And we had a fight. A terrible, stupid fight. His voice cracked. I said things I didn't mean. He said things he did mean. And he walked out that door. Harold pointed toward the entrance. And I haven't seen him since. 27 years. Emma couldn't imagine it. Have you tried reaching out? She asked gently. Harold laughed bitterly. 100 times. 1,000 times. Letters, emails. I even hired someone to find him once. But Michael, he made it very clear he wanted nothing to do with me. What did you fight about? Harold closed his eyes. His mother had just passed. Cancer. It destroyed us both. And he wanted to sell the house, her house, immediately. Said he couldn't stand being there without her. But I got angry, told him he was being selfish, that he was abandoning her memory. He shook his head. I was wrong. I was grieving and angry, and I took it out on him. And by the time I realized how badly I'd hurt him, it was too late. Emma reached across the table and placed her hand over his. It's never too late. Harold smiled sadly. That's kind of you. But some doors close and never open again. Emma squeezed his hand. Maybe But maybe tonight is different. Harold looked at her like she was speaking a language he'd forgotten. What do you mean? Emma stood up. But wait here. Inside the box was something that had been missing for 27 years, and it would change everything. Emma rushed to the back of the diner, her mind racing. Near the kitchen, beside the employee lockers, stood a small Christmas tree decorated with handmade ornaments and paper snowflakes, and beneath it, a cardboard box. The owner, Mrs. Chen, had started a tradition 5 years ago. Every Christmas Eve, she asked regular customers to bring in small wrapped gifts, nothing expensive, just tokens, and the staff would give them to people who seemed like they needed a little extra kindness. Emma had thought it was cheesy at first, but right now it felt like fate. She dug through the box, rejected a coffee mug, passed over a bookmark, kept searching until her fingers closed around something small and solid. A gift wrapped in faded red paper, tied with twine, no tag, no name, just a note that said, "For someone who's been waiting." Emma's hands trembled as she carried it back to booth 7. Harold looked up, confused. "What's this?" "A gift," Emma said simply. Well, I'm not sure who, but I think you're supposed to have it." Harold stared at the package like it might explode. "I can't accept this. I don't even know who—" "Please," Emma interrupted. "And just open it." Slowly, carefully, Harold unwrapped the paper. Inside was a small wooden ornament, hand-carved, in the shape of a train engine. The paint was chipped. One of the wheels was slightly crooked, but it was clearly made with love, the kind of imperfect perfection that only comes from something created by hand. Harold went completely still. The color drained from his face. "Where?" His voice was barely a whisper. Where did you get this?" Emma's stomach dropped. "I told you. It was in the donation box. Why? What is it?" Harold's hands shook as he held the ornament up to the light. "My wife made this. Catherine. She carved it the first Christmas we were married, 1963. She said—" He choked on the words. "She said it was a symbol, that our love would keep moving forward, no matter what." Tears streamed down his face. When Michael moved out, when he left after our fight, this went missing. I thought he took it out of spite. Or maybe I lost it in the chaos. I looked everywhere for years. It was the last thing she made before the cancer took her hands. Emma felt her entire body go cold. "Mr. Benton, who else knows about this ornament?" "No one," Harold whispered. "Just me and Michael." Emma's heart started pounding. What if— She almost didn't dare say it out loud. "What if he's the one who left it here?" Harold shook his head. "That's impossible. He doesn't even know I come here." But Emma was already moving. She ran to the front counter where Mrs. Chen was counting receipts. "Mrs. Chen, the gifts under the tree, who donated them this year?" Mrs. Chen looked up, surprised. "Oh, lots of people, sweetie. Regulars mostly. Why? Do you remember anyone new? Someone who maybe hasn't been here in a long time?" Mrs. Chen frowned, thinking, "Well, there was one man. Came in about a week ago. Tall, probably late 40s. Said he used to come here as a kid. Wanted to donate something special." Emma's pulse raced. "Did he leave a name?" Mrs. Chen shook her head. "No, but—" She paused. "He asked if Harold Benton still came here on Christmas Eve." The world stopped spinning. Emma turned slowly and looked back at booth 7. Harold was holding the wooden train like it was the most precious thing on earth. And suddenly, Emma understood. Michael hadn't forgotten. He'd been watching, waiting, hoping his father would find the message. Harold dialed the number he'd memorized 27 years ago, but what answered on the other end would test every ounce of courage he had left. Emma practically ran back to the booth. "Mr. Benton," she said breathlessly. "Your son. Do you have his phone number?" Harold looked up, dazed. Yes, I've had it memorized for 27 years, but he blocked me. Changed it, probably." "Try it," Emma urged. "Right now, please." Harold stared at her like she was asking him to jump off a bridge. "I can't. What if he answers?" Emma interrupted. "What if he's been waiting for you to call?" Harold's lip trembled. "I don't know what to say." Emma sat down across from him again. "You don't have to have a speech. You don't have to fix 27 years in one phone call. You just have to say hello." She pulled out her own phone and handed it to him. "Please." With shaking hands, Harold took the phone. He dialed slowly, like each number was a mountain to climb. Emma watched his face, every flicker of fear, every wave of hope, every moment of second-guessing. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Harold closed his eyes. Then click. "Hello?" A man's voice, deep, cautious. Harold's mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Hello?" the voice repeated. "Who is this?" Harold's eyes met Emma's. She nodded encouragingly. "Michael," Harold finally whispered. It's Dad." Silence. Long, terrible silence. Harold braced himself for the click, the dial tone, the rejection he'd been expecting for 27 years. But then, "Dad," Michael's voice cracked on the word. Harold couldn't breathe. "I found the train, the one your mother made." More silence. Then, quietly, "You go there every year, don't you?" Harold's eyes widened. You know, I've driven by every Christmas Eve for the last decade," Michael admitted. "I'd park across the street, watch you through the window. I could never bring myself to come in." Harold sobbed. "Why didn't you?" "Because I didn't know if you wanted me to," Michael said. "Because I was angry for so long, and then I was just scared that too much time had passed, that you'd moved on, that I'd ruined everything." "You didn't ruin anything," Harold choked out. "I did. I'm the one who—" "We both did," Michael interrupted. "We both said things we can't take back." Harold wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I'm sorry, son. I'm so sorry for all of it. For not being there when you needed me, for making you feel like you had to choose between your grief and mine." "I'm sorry too, Dad." Emma realized she was crying. Harold looked at the phone like it was a miracle. "Michael, are you far from here?" A pause. Then, 20 minutes. Harold's breath caught. You're in town." "I'm always in town on Christmas Eve," Michael said softly. "I never left." "Not really." Harold covered his mouth with his hand. "Will you—" He could barely get the words out. "Will you come have dinner with me?" Another long pause. Emma held her breath. Finally, "I'm already on my way." At 11:43 p.m., the diner door opened, and 27 years of silence finally ended. Time moved differently after that phone call. Harold sat frozen in booth 7, staring at the door like it was the gates of heaven. Emma stayed nearby, pretending to wipe down tables, but really just keeping watch. Other customers came and went. Families finished their meals. Kids fell asleep in their parents' arms. The Christmas music played on. Bing Crosby, Nat King Cole, all the classics. But in booth 7, the world had narrowed to a single point. The door. Harold had taken off his coat, refolded his napkin 4 times, tried to smooth his hair in the reflection of the window. What if he changed his mind? He whispered to Emma when she passed by. "He won't," Emma said with more confidence than she felt. "What if I say the wrong thing again?" "You won't. What if—" The door opened. Cold air rushed in. Snow swirled. The little bell above the entrance chimed, and there, standing in the doorway, was a man, tall, broad-shouldered, grey streaking through his dark hair, wearing a thick winter coat and work boots caked with snow. His eyes scanned the diner, searching, and then they landed on booth 7, on Harold. Time stopped. The entire diner seemed to hold its breath. Harold stood up slowly, his legs shaking. Michael took one step forward, then another. They met in the middle of the diner, between table 5 and table 9, right under the plastic mistletoe that Mrs. Chen hung every year, father and son, separated by 27 years and 3 feet of linoleum floor. Neither of them spoke. They just stood there, drinking each other in. Harold had gotten older, smaller, more fragile. Michael had gotten weathered, tired, more like his father than he probably realized. "Hi, Dad," Michael finally said. His voice broke on both words. Harold reached out with trembling hands and cupped his son's face. "You're real," he whispered. "You're really here. I'm here." And then they collapsed into each other. Harold sobbed into his son's shoulder. Michael held him up, his own tears falling silent and fast. "I'm sorry," Harold kept saying. "I'm so sorry." "Me too," Michael choked out. "Me too, Dad." They stood there for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. The other diners had gone quiet, watching. Even the cook had come out of the kitchen. Emma stood behind the counter, mascara running down her face, not even trying to hide her tears. Finally, Harold pulled back and looked at his son. "You've gotten old," he said with a watery laugh. Michael smiled. "So have you. I've missed you every single day." "I've missed you too." Harold gestured back toward booth 7. Will you sit with me?" Michael looked at the booth, at the 2 plates of food, long since gone cold. "I'd like that." They sat across from each other for the first time in 27 years. Needed to be said. Emma brought fresh plates, hot food, new coffee, extra pie. She set everything down carefully and then, impulsively, squeezed both their shoulders. "Merry Christmas," she whispered. "Thank you," Michael said, looking up at her. "For whatever you did, thank you." Emma just smiled and walked away. Harold and Michael sat across from each other. For a long moment, neither touched their food. They just looked at each other like they were still making sure this was real. "Tell me everything," Harold finally said. 27 years. I want to know all of it." Michael laughed shakily. "That's a long story. I've got time." So Michael talked. He told his father about the years of anger, the therapy, the failed relationships because he didn't know how to let people in. The night he almost called 100 times, but hung up before it rang. He told him about the job he'd taken in construction, the house he'd bought 3 miles from where they used to live, the way he'd drive past their old place sometimes, just to see if the garden his mother planted was still there. It wasn't. He told him about finding the wooden train ornament in a box of his mother's things 5 years ago, how he'd carried it in his pocket for months, how he'd finally decided to leave it at the diner as a message, a test maybe, to see if his father would understand. "I didn't think you'd find it," Michael admitted. "I thought maybe you'd stopped coming." "Never," Harold said firmly. "I could never stop. This place, it's the last place I had you both." Then it was Harold's turn. He talked about the letters he'd written and never sent, the birthdays he'd celebrated alone, always buying a card, always throwing it away, the way he'd kept Michael's room exactly the same for 15 years before finally accepting he might never come home. He talked about the heart attack he'd had 3 years ago, how the first thing he'd thought when he woke up in the hospital was that he might die without ever seeing his son again. "That's when I started coming here every Christmas Eve," Harold explained. "I know it sounds foolish, but I thought maybe if I kept the tradition alive, if I stayed in the same place at the same time, you'd, I don't know, sense it, somehow, find your way back." Michael reached across the table and took his father's hand. "I did find my way back." They ate then slowly, savoring it. The turkey wasn't fancy. The potatoes were from a box. The pie was the same recipe Mrs. Chen had been using for 30 years. But it was the best meal either of them had ever tasted, because they were together. The Silver Spoon Diner became their place. Harold and Michael returned every Christmas Eve after that. Same booth, same meal, but now they came together. Sometimes Michael's daughter joined them, a little girl with her grandmother's smile who Harold taught to love trains. Sometimes they just sat in comfortable silence, shoulders touching, letting the noise of the diner wash over them. The wooden train ornament hung from Harold's rearview mirror. Michael bought his father a phone and taught him how to text. They had Sunday dinners, birthday calls, arguments about politics that ended in laughter instead of slammed doors. They had time, not enough to make up for what they'd lost, but enough to build something new. As for Emma, Harold called her the angel who wouldn't give up. Michael called her family. She was invited to every Christmas dinner, every birthday, every graduation. And years later, when Harold passed away peacefully in his sleep at 91, Michael stood at his funeral and told the story of the Christmas miracle, of the waitress who refused to let an old man eat alone, of the wooden train that carried a message across 27 years of silence, of the door that opened and brought the dead back to life. "My father taught me something that night," Michael said to the crowd. "Like, it's never too late. It's never too late to forgive. It's never too late to come home. It's never too late to say I'm sorry, and it's never too late to say I love you." He looked at Emma in the front row. "And sometimes, all it takes is one person who cares enough to notice." So here's what I want you to remember from this story. Someone out there is waiting. Someone is sitting in their own version of Booth 7, hoping the door will open. Someone is carrying their own wooden train, wondering if anyone still remembers. Maybe that someone is you, or maybe you're Emma. Maybe you're the one who can notice, who can reach out, who can refuse to let someone be alone. Small acts of kindness don't feel small to the people who receive them. They feel like miracles. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. And in the comments, tell me, have you ever witnessed a moment of kindness that changed everything? Or maybe you've been Harold, waiting for someone to come back. Or maybe you've been Michael, trying to find the courage to walk through the door. Whatever your story is, I'd love to hear it. Thank you for watching, and Merry Christmas.